Okay, so I have extra dogs around today, and they may or may not decide to show up um, on screen, that is. And I have a yoga block. You would probably be benefited by having something like a yoga block. And I will be honest with you, we will use it for two different things. So there's a point at which you might need it, like, the type where we use like a growler or a protein powder, and then there's the type where you might want like a block, a box, or a very angry young dog, or maybe like a stack of books. That's the word I was looking for, books. And at some point, you may or may not want a yoga strap, but we're not going to use that until the end. So those are just things that you may want to have handy. But we are going to use the block thing a little bit in ways that will help to open up the hips. That's what we're doing today. Lots and lots and lots and lots of hip opening. A good thing to do when we need to feel a little bit more grounded as seasons shift and it starts to get maybe kind of windy. Oh dear, I've got a thing. Whoop, yeah. And a dog to trip on. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so as we move into this deep hip opening practice, I have, I think, a short intention for today. I was once, years and years ago, I was talking to a woman who came out of I was subbing at one of those big public yoga studios, and I came in and I was really frantic and I didn't really have like a lot to say about practice. And so I just said something really generic about like, let's just breathe and be present and like kind of just be here today. And I want to stretch out your hamstrings. Is that okay? And they're like, great. And then at the end of it, this woman came up to me and she said, I am so glad that you didn't try to tell us something about how fabulous we have the potential to be, because I feel like every class I've been in lately, the teacher has said something about like, what are you going to do with this one grand, precious life of yours? And I just felt like there was a lot of pressure to be grand and fabulous, and I haven't really been feeling that way lately. I've been seeing two things lately. One, somebody said, why don't we just work on being your favorite version of yourself rather than always having to be like your best self or your higher self? Like, hopefully that's the direction we're going in. But if you can just say like, this is a version of me that I really enjoy and feel solid in, let's let that be good enough most of the time, right? And then also, have you seen the meme? This challenge I'm doing is called October. It's just where I try to get through all of the days that are October. That's it. Sometimes just maintaining can be really therapeutic and beneficial. And then we have that like grounding foundation framework from where we may be able to grow and blossom into this, grand fabulousness or higher best self. But sometimes it's just okay to be here and make it through all of the days that are October and setting the goals there. So as we move into practice, if things don't happen to feel like, grand and wonderful, and you just kind of want to maybe back off and breathe and be here with the music and the energy we share in this space, awesome. I'm glad you're here to do it. And we're going to start with face brushing. Take your index finger and thumb together, and you're going to bring the base of your thumb to the center of your forehead, brush outwards towards your temples a few times. And then moving from the sides of your nose out to your temples, along your cheekbones, and your temples down to your chin, along your jawline, and the sides of your nose down to your chin, along your laugh line. And then massaging underneath and behind your ears where you feel the bony spot and the lift from that bony spot. And hopefully some softness in the spaces between your neck bones. Keeping that lift as you rest your hands down into your lap. Just taking a few deep breaths. Taking this moment to tune inwards and just see How's it going today, this evening, this morning, wherever you happen to be in this illusion that is time? And then next time you breathe in nice and full through your nose, big exhale through your mouth. Again, like that. For 3, Start to open your eyes, and we're going to begin in swan pose. So getting, like I said, right into those hips. So I'm going to take the right shin and set it up so that it's lined up with the front of my face. Sit on the right hip, but move that left leg just as far back as you can get it. And then start to bring your heart forward in the direction of your shin. And it's going to be a little easier to come in the direction of your thigh, but try to come a little bit more in the direction of your shin, even if it's harder to get down further. Because we're going to be here for a while, so over time you might notice that you have a little bit more room to get down a little bit further. And long-held yin poses are actually designed to be done with the body a little bit colder. So you're like, wait a minute, we just started. I'm not as stretched out as I could be. That's all right. We're going to take the time that we're here to just loosen the muscles and then get deeper into the connective tissue. And we're going to be here for about another minute. Letting your breath soften, noticing if you have any more room to soften in towards your leg just a little bit more. We'll take 2 more deep breaths. And then start to walk yourself up. So you're going to peel yourself off of your leg. And then the leg that was back behind you, go ahead and slide it out in front of you. I'm just going to shift so that you can see. I've got this wide-legged Janu Shirsasana sort of shape. So I'm just going to come forward in the middle of these legs. And I'm also going to adjust my camera because apparently I wanted to point at the ceiling and not at me. And then you're just going to let your breath soften as you take your body gently forward. I had my right leg bent, still got my right leg bent, coming forward. One more exhale. And then start to pick yourself up, and we're going to go to swan on the other side. Now you can face the same way. I'm going to shift because this way I'll still be facing you. I'm going to bring that shin mostly parallel to the front edge of the mat and sitting over on the left hip, extending my right leg back behind me, and then drawing the heart forward in the direction of my shin a little bit more so than the knee. Now, this is different than pigeon pose. Pigeon pose, you don't sit over on one hip. Pigeon pose, you don't worry about the shin being lined up. And this isn't an exact thing, the shin being lined up. It's just a good way to set yourself up and have an idea of the type of rotation that we're trying to get into the hip, and the type is deep. Deep is the type that we're going for here. So as some of you have some space to go forward, feel free to move into that space. And if you don't have the space to go more forward, then you hang out where you are. And it doesn't have to be the best version of the shape every single time. You connect with what it is at that time. We're going to be here for 5 more breaths. One more exhale. And then starting to lift yourself up, and you're going to shift so that you have this leg out in front, or you can kind of tuck yourself over. So you've got the same leg bent, turn inwards, legs are wide, and then coming forward into whatever degree of a fold is available to you. It can be really far, it can be not so far. You might notice it's a little bit tighter or a little bit more open on this side. Just stay with your breath. Softening as you exhale. One more breath out. And then walking your hands back in, and we're going to set up in table pose. So go ahead and draw yourself up onto your hands and knees. Please pad up your knees as much as you need. And then you're going to slide your right leg out to your right side. Try to press the pinky toe edge of your foot down, and then move your hands one handprint further forward. And you're going to let your tail feathers unfurl like you've got a whole bunch of them, and the plumage is really wild and crazy. Really letting that tailbone roll upwards. Maybe you come down onto your forearms if that feels good to you, but don't worry about exactly how low you get. One more exhale. And if you went down to elbows, come back up to hands. You're going to keep walking these hands back towards your leg, and then come up to where your hips are above your knees. I'm going to leave the pinky toe edge of the foot on the floor, and then reach your left arm up. You're going to come into a little side bend, and you're going to have probably this resistance, this gripping on this hip, right? Don't worry about dropping it down, pushing it down. Can you just let that resistance soften a little bit? Yeah. One more exhale. And then bring the hands down. You're going to slide the right leg all the way back and behind you and over towards the left as much as you can. And then move your right hand further forward, and we're going to press this right hip back. So if there's any compression happening during that side bend, you're releasing it. And then we'll release both knees down and both hands in, coming back to table pose. So the left leg can slide out to the side. Try to reach that pinky toe edge down to the floor. So we're releasing your outer shin, and then you bring your hands one hand print further forward and let your tailbone tilt up and your tail feathers unfurl. And if after some time you can get more tail feather unfurling with your forearms on the ground, then you make that shift. One more exhale. And then if you came down to forearms, come back up to your hands, start to walk your hands back in towards you, and you're going to come up so that you're standing right up above your knee. Leave the pinky toe edge of that back foot down. Take your right arm up and then reach up longer through that right side. And when you feel that resistance, that grabbing on the outside of your left hip, just think softness in it. It can be pretty profound, the difference that happens there. Or it can be a word or a phrase that just makes no sense to you and your body doesn't make any sense of it. And you say, you know what, there's probably some other way I can explain that to myself. Or maybe like another day it'll resonate, and that's all okay too. One more exhale. And then coming back, bringing your hands down, and then taking that left leg, you're going to slide it all the way back and behind you over towards the right. And as the right hand comes a handprint further forward, you push back through your hips, feeling a little bit of space opening up that might have been a little bit too crunchy in that side bend. And then you'll come back to the center. We're going to walk the hands forward, coming into puppy dog and feeling again those tail feathers unfurl up and behind you. Let the arms come out wider so you're getting some length on the backs of the shoulders. Letting the heart fall down towards the floor. One more exhale. And then start to walk your hands back in. And we're going to roll over and come onto our back. So you can take yourself down onto the floor, draw your right leg in, and to whatever degree it is comfy to you, let your left leg go out. So it could be a little bit, could be a lot, could be not very much at all. I'm just going to tuck the right knee into the degree that is comfortable to you and stay here for 3 more breaths, letting it soften. One more exhale. And then with the left hand, guide the knee over towards the left. You're going to take the right arm out. Try to leave the hand off the ground and let the shoulder come down first. So maybe you're really rotating and opening up the chest. And then eventually either the hand comes down or you kind of give up and let the hand come down because the shoulder hasn't come down quite enough. And if it feels really tight, bring the arm a little bit lower than the shoulder so you might have a little bit more room. And then soften your belly. One more exhale. And take it back to the center. Go ahead and set your right foot down, tuck your left leg in, slide the right leg out to whatever degree is comfortable to you. And then we're going to soften this knee in. And we're not staying for long, so probably a big change won't take place, but hopefully a good steady amount of softening can develop. Just long enough to let it relax. One more exhale. And then using your right hand to guide the leg across, coming into this twist. You see, I'm starting here. My shoulder's not quite on the ground, so I'm going to let the shoulder drop the hand down. Get a little bit bigger chest stretch. Why? Well, just because we're moving more in the hips and the shoulders a bit today. So I want to still make sure we get that heart nice and open and release. Let the belly soften when you exhale. One more breath. And then back to the center. Take both of these knees in. Give yourself a little squeeze. Rock around a bit side to side. And then you're going to rock yourself up to a seat, and you're going to come back to your hands and knees. And when you get back to your hands and knees, you're going to walk your knees back a little bit, lean your heart forward, and then feel your collarbones open. So you want to start nice long chest. Bring your belly up towards your spine and then lower as slowly as you can or want to down onto the floor. Untuck your toes, reach them back behind you, reach your arms back behind you. Come up Shalabhasana to stretch your chest open. Feet can float up if you like. One more breath in. And then exhale, soften it down. We're going to bring the hands underneath the shoulders, pick your belly and your hips up, and as slow as you want to, slower is harder, keep your chest open, and press up off of the floor, and then spread out from your heart right into your hands. You feel strong in the back of the heart. Let's curl the toes under and come into downward facing dog. Release your head down. Release your heels back. Maybe you've got bent knees and you're wiggling things around. You're still pushing down, strong heart into your hands. Okay. I will let you know, if you ever want to know where you're most likely going to need your block, it's going to be up by the front of your mat. So if you have your block and you can bring it up by the front of your mat, it might be kind of useful. You might want it for this next pose. What we're going to do is we're going to look forward and step the right foot up outside of the right hand. And then at that point, you might say, wow, I really wish my arms were longer. And then you go ahead and put the block underneath your left hand. Lift your inner thigh muscles. Push strong into your right foot. You might take your right hand and put it on your thigh, or you might take your right hand and put it in the sky. And if your right hip is trying to push out to the right, instead you're going to pull it towards that back foot. And then soften your belly, let this twist open up. Excellent. One more breath. And then you're going to take your hands down and you're going to move your left hand over to the left a little bit. Put your left heel on the ground. And then you either take both hands onto your block or both hands onto the ground. But I'll show you what it doesn't look like is this. And it doesn't look like this. You're going to have this warrior one stance in your legs, so front leg bent, the hip pulling back, and my fingertips are just out there for balance. There's almost no weight in my hands. Maybe like a little bit, but mostly I'm just here feeling my hip lean. We call this Spider-Man warrior because you're crawling up the wall with warrior legs. Good. One more. Good. And then you're going to bring everything forward. You're going to step your left foot outside of your left hand and come into a squat. And that squat could stay here, or it could go pretty far down. Ooh-wee. It's like lobotomizing the right hip. Let's let the upper butt relax down away from the ears, and the ears float up away from the upper butt. And then take your hands down and your hips up and wiggle your feet to about hip width distance apart. Bend your knees, let the whole spine cascade down. Notice I've got my hands up on a block. You can always do this. You don't have to have your hands on the floor. One more exhale. And then gently come up to standing. When you get there, open your arms, let your hips press forward. And then bring your hands down into your heart. We're going to step the feet together. You're going to squeeze your thighs towards each other. We're going to sit back into a chair, and because I know you don't want to hold this very long either, we're just going to go right into it. We're either going to twist elbow down to the knee, so it's elbow down to the knee, or hands around that right thigh. So go over to that right side again. Good. Now, look down at your left foot. We're going to press down into that right foot. So your left heel might lift, and then you're going to see about scooching that left leg back. And if it didn't get very far and you got very wobbly, then you just scooch it back again. And then you're going to tuck your right hip up and back towards your left foot. Maybe you twist a little bit deeper. One more exhale. And then unwind everything. Warrior two. Ooh, whole big changes. So once you come out into warrior two, give yourself a little peaceful warrior to stretch out that right side you were just compressing. One more inhale. And side angle coming down. Push down into that pinky toe edge of your foot. Draw this hip towards that back foot. And you're gonna roll it down, plant both hands down, step back to downward facing dog. You might need to do a lot of adjustment in order to get there. I'm just observing the differences between your sides. That was a lot of poses to do all on one side. Go ahead and look forward, lower your knees down gently. You should be in kind of a long plank, or a long table pose, like not a short one. Set your knees back a little bit. You might adjust your hands further forward. And then you're gonna keep your chest open as you slowly, or not so slowly, lower down onto your belly. Untuck the toes. We're gonna lift up in a cobra pose, but still feel your chest stretch open. Exhale, lower it down, and then lift your belly, lift your hips, push yourself up, and then back into downward facing dog. And it can be a really bent kneed, luxurious downward dog, because you know you're gonna be doing so much into that left leg. In fact, let's start. Let's take the left foot forward outside of the left hand. Good. And then you can put maybe a block or something underneath your right hand, and you're gonna open up your left arm, or put it on your thigh. Now you wanna try to keep this ankle over the knee, and we're gonna lift the inner thigh. Gonna keep things just a little bit more lined up. Press that back leg back. It's a little bit wider of a twist. I'm gonna use some extra space here to really pull that hip back. One more exhale. And you're gonna take your left hand down, you're gonna take your right heel down. You're not gonna let the bum go that way, you're gonna tuck it in and back, and then your right hand goes to the right a bit. Maybe both hands go onto the block. Maybe your hands are out on the floor, but your weight is not all in the hands, and you're not letting your left hip glide out to the left. It's pretty strong in these legs. One more exhale. And then looking forward, bringing yourself forward, including that right foot coming outside of the right hand, and then you hang out in this squat or in this squat, which might involve some foot wiggling in order to find that space where you're well set up with your feet planted in all four corners. One more exhale. And then the hands come down and the hips go up, and we work ourselves back into a fold. Let the backs of your legs open up, your tail feathers explode out into their brilliant plumage, and your neck relaxes. And you let out one more exhale. And then stand all the way up. When you get those arms up, feel the weight move forward, the heart lift up. One more inhale. And then exhale, hands back down at your heart. We're going to work through the other side. So I'm going to bring my feet together so that they touch, and then I'm going to adjust all of my clothes. I might do the same, knowing that we've got a few more poses to work through on the other side to get through this sequence. So keeping your legs together, your knees together, sit your hips back. We're going to move this chair into a twist, either with elbow down or with hands at knee and hip. So you get to choose. You're going to squeeze those thighs together, push the hips back, lengthen the ears out of your shoulders. And I find it easiest when I look down to do this. And you're going to move the weight into your left foot and not let your left knee turn in. Try to keep it strong and facing forward. And it can be like 22 little scooches or one big scooch back into that twisting lunge. And then you might turn your gaze back over to the heart. This is getting hard. Lift those inner thighs. One more exhale. And then it opens all the way up into Warrior Two, which probably means you have to adjust your feet. The odds that you got into just the perfect Warrior Two legs with that twisting lunge are fairly low, right? Like, it was kind of just a crapshoot to begin with, so we adjust when we get there. And then let's lift up Peaceful Warrior, stretching out through that left side. One more breath in. And then coming forward, side angle, push out through the outer edge of your right foot. Reach your ears away from your tailbone down towards your right heel. One more exhale. And then go ahead and curl it down, plant your hands down. We're going to step it back into downward facing dog, doing whatever you need to organize yourself in that place. And then pushing strong from your heart to your hands. Relax your heels. One more exhale. And then lower your knees down. And you're going to come out to that long table pose. I'm going to move this out from under my nose, and you're going to lower as slowly as you want to, and that includes just flop yourself down on the floor. That's okay. And then you're going to come up into a cobra, and it doesn't have to be a giant back bend. Just let your chest peel open. Exhale, lower. And if you don't want to lift your belly up, if you don't want to do the hard ab move, then you just get yourself up off of the floor. So you might lift a little bit stronger in the arms. Curl the toes under, downward loving dog. And then we're going to take this downward dog to the back of our mat, finding a fold. So you walk it back and bend into your knees. And then you're going to take your right leg and tuck it back in behind you. Try to push more into the big toe mounds of your feet. Getting that IT band. And then switch the cross of your legs, uncross the right one, take the left leg back behind. One more exhale. And unwind it. Go ahead and let your knees bend, roll up through the spine, trying to create a little more softness there. And then we will emerge standing, and you can take your legs out fairly wide here. We're going to turn the knees and toes out and come into old softball guy pose. Now this is like horse stance, so you get to hold on to your thighs, so it's not nearly so hard on your thighs. And you might give that room to then relax your hips down. I'm going to take a little shoulder stretch here if it feels good to you. Still push down strong into the outer edges of your feet. Take the other shoulder forward. Keep pressing those thighs apart. One more exhale. And then back to the center. And go ahead and lift up. And then turn all 10 toes to face forward and come down into a fold. But my suggestion here would be to find some length in the spine out of these very open hips we've already created. So I'm going to walk fingertips forward like puppy dogs, but I'm going to keep all of the weight in my feet so I can lift my hands up at any time and it's not going to throw me off. You are welcome to take any modification. I do mean any one you like. I'm liking this one in this practice though. One more exhale. And then start walking your hands back in. I'm going to come up to standing. And I just realized that I should probably have like a timer on my phone for the times I usually leave the house so that I blow out candles, because that's been on for a long time. And then if you want to, actually grab a block. If you have blocks to put hands on in triangle pose, we will go to the right first. I'll mirror you here. So I'm going to turn it out, shift the hips over, and come into triangle pose with or without the block, but you know, if it's there, then as well use it. My arms aren't quite long enough that I can have my palm down, but then like my heart is below my hip, so you lose a little bit of that long, strong spine. Good. Now, in triangle pose, I've got the feet lined up with that tightrope kind of line where they're all set up just kind of like warrior two. In order to do revolve triangle, you're going to have to make a shift, and you can tell when you start to come into it what that shift is, right? You got to come from that legs lined up place to hopping that back leg out to your left a little bit. Yeah. And then from there, you can get the hips a little bit more squared up. And you can even bend a little into that front leg today. Mister, that's going to be totally fine because I really want you to find a place where you can tuck that front hip towards your back foot. And then you'll leave the opposite arm down. So if my right leg is forward, my left hand is down. And then you might just take your right hand to your hip and guide that hip back a little bit more. So we're really getting into that leg and that IT band. Try to stand even weight on both feet. That's also going to help to lift and balance your hips. And then maybe you look over towards the right. Maybe your arm opens towards the right. My arm only comes to like 5:55. It really doesn't get a full 6 o'clock. If I had somebody here to push into my hand and really open this shoulder, then I would be like, oh my gosh, my outer thigh, that's still a bit too much. One more exhale. And then go ahead and look down again. You're going to take your right hand back to your right hip. You've got this block or this object that you're using like a block. You're going to hop the back foot up, scoot your block or your object forward, and then you're going to stand up on your right leg. Now this time, leave your toes facing down and lift that leg up like warrior 3. And then you might start looking over towards the right side, lift those inner thighs. If you wanted to open up your right arm, you could do that, just kind of seeing what happens to your breath. And then coming down into a fold. Just a quick one to bring yourself up to standing. We're going triangle, revolve, half moon. Before we do revolve half moon on the other side, I just want to show from the front that this often, okay, let's show from the side. So what often happens here is this. Is it okay to lower the leg? Yes, but you know what I'm really doing there? Stopping this hip, see? Try to come up here and twist left. So I'm lifting my inner thighs and my legs are steady, and then I'm rotating it around the ribs. And you don't have a lot of weight in that hand. Not a lot of weight, at least. Try to go for that in this shape, and it's a little bit different. And it might be easier to hold the balance there. You might find that you get all of those pieces put together in such a way that it supports you. Okay, triangle, other side, legs lined up in a line, hips doing the shifty thing, block perhaps coming down, and then right arm lifting, open from the shoulder, ears away from your tailbone, tailbone away from your ears. One more exhale. And then you're going to look down. You're going to take your right hand down now to that block, and you're going to hop your right foot over to the right and possibly up a little bit. So now your hips are squared towards the same direction as your left toes, and then you might just take your hand to your hip here and guide this hip back, and you can have a little bend into that front knee so that your hamstring has room to do it. Really pulling back through the hips. Maybe the heart opens up to the fingertips. You soften your belly as you twist. You remind yourself that, yeah, this one's a hard one for everybody, but also this too shall pass. And then you're going to look down and bring your hand back to your hip. You're going to hop your back foot up, hop your hand forward, maybe a lot forward. You want to have your hand underneath your shoulder, and then as you stand up on your left leg, leave your right toes facing the floor, and then lift both hips. Lift both inner thighs. Then maybe lift your left shoulder. Maybe you lift your arm. You're looking over towards that left, trying to find your breath. It's in there somewhere. One more exhale. And then forward fold, soft knees, soft spine. Go ahead and roll it up into standing. Take your hands behind your back. We're just going to give a quick shoulder stretch after all that rotation. Bring your hands over to the left side of your waist. Lift the front of your hips, draw your elbows back, and then release your left ear to your left shoulder. And releasing the chest and the neck on that right side. Exhale. Relax the arms, bring yourself back to center. Move the hands to the other side. Release your ears down towards your hands. Soften the chin. One more exhale. And gently come back to the center. Unwind your arms. We're going to come down into one more squat. You're welcome to sit your hips on the block in a squat, and you might have to do some little wigglies in order to get yourself there, and it doesn't have to be with your hips below your knees, but you might surprise yourself. You might surprise yourself that it doesn't feel as good and you'd rather have the block underneath or the hips in line with the knees. Press into the pinky toe edges of your feet. One more exhale. And then releasing your hips all the way down with or without your hands. I'm going to take the soles of the feet together, maybe move the flesh out from underneath your bum, and then come forward into a fold, seeking a spacing that feels good to you, which might mean that you move the feet further away or more in, or not worry about coming forward as much. Two more breaths. And start to take yourself up. And then this is that space where you might want more of like that, having a block or like a couple of DVDs that you're studying, or a book that you're studying up a little bit more of that, like graduating increase in space. And that could be just having your feet a little bit further separate. That works too. Having the contact of your feet onto something can make a little bit more difference. You might need to adjust the flesh again. This is about 3 inches. 1 inch is fine. Any amount of separation is going to increase and change the sensation. Let's come forward again. Gently, 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 just a little bit. It seems like it takes kind of a lot of effort to make a little bit of impression. So don't make a crazy amount of effort to make a lot of impression. A little impression on the block goes a long way in those hips, as I'm sure you're already starting to feel. Deep breath in. Deep breath out. And then start to lift yourself up. And my block has 2 more settings. If you get to a bigger setting or put another book or DVD in between your feet and you're like, oh, that's too much, maybe back off to nothing and then go back to that short amount of distance again. And then always adjust these things. You might have to fidget your hips. You might, I feel better with the middle setting, honestly, than the lowest setting. The lowest setting is just like a little bit of like a small shift. It feels kind of awkward. This feels like a new thing. And there's all kinds of responses that we have to our experiences. And honestly, I think the only thing that might be wrong is like unkindness. I don't know. It's okay to like be disappointed or have that discernment, like, I don't like this very much, but just don't tell yourself you're a jerk or a loser for it, okay? One more exhale. Woo, and then come on up. And there's another setting. There's a greater length around this. This is about, I think it's 9 inches. It's 3, 6, and 9. The best that I know about here. So if you wanted to come out that far, if you're just kind of working your way from 3 to 4 to 5, whatever you're working with here, we're gonna go forward again. A little bit of pressure. Scoot these feet closer. There we go. A little extra bum wiggle. Okay, there's the spot. Little pushing gently of the feet in towards the block. One more exhale. Okay, go ahead and take that to your side. Bring your feet together again. Just come forward for a moment. Oh my goodness. Big exhale. And then come up. We're going to tuck your right foot in closer. Take your left leg and cross it over. If having that right leg underneath doesn't work, extend it out in front of you. You just don't want to be sitting on it. I'm going to hug into the side, draw it in, and twist. One more exhale. And then release, and let's wrap up the other side. So you're going to take that left side and tuck it in. Don't sit on it or extend it out. And then I've got the right leg up and over, tall, strong spine, softening the belly. One more exhale. And then release your twist. We're going to unwind it. And then you're going to come onto your hands and knees. I will show you facing this way. You have a couple of options. One of them is like just child's pose and hang out. One is to keep walking your knees wider until you come into frog pose. One is to be in only half frog, and maybe you just kind of hang out for a moment. Now, when I'm down in half frog, you can see how my leg is lined up here. My knee is up straight from my hip. My foot is behind me. I'm on the big toe edge of my foot. So if I were to come into full frog here, is bring my hips as low as they're willing to. Sometimes letting the tailbone rolls up feels better. And then you might come down to your chest. You might be up on your forearms. You might say, wow, this is whole bunches of insane. And then you maybe try half frog, where you just have the one leg out, and it's still just relaxing your inner thighs rather than maybe going wild on your inner thighs. If you do have only the one leg out still, let's go with just 2 more breaths. And then switching sides. And spend about 2 more breaths in this pose. And then coming back up, gently scooch those knees back in. We're doing all of the variations of getting into these hips. The last thing that we're going to do, one of the last things we're going to do is a little internal rotation. So you're going to have your knees crossed. Maybe it's your right leg that you take back behind, and then separate your feet and walk yourself back. You can grab a block to put underneath your feet, and maybe you grab onto that strap. Now, if this is just being here is enough and you have this cow face pose, your knees are stacked on each other, if just being here is hard enough and you need to hang and breathe, hang and breathe. I told you this is a hips practice. We do have the opportunity to work in all directions with all things. So what you might do is maybe with the strap, you take that right arm up just slightly in front of you and then bend into the elbows, let the outer armpit wrap forward, and then you reach back and hold on to the other end of the strap, and I'm going to pull apart and rest my heart and my head back into my arms. So I'm not creating a deep back bend. I'm using this to expand my back. It's a little different, yeah? If your hands grab, you can grab the hands. I'm feeling good work using the strap still, even though my arms bind easily. Can you relax your body into the back space without rounding back? Two more breaths out. And gently release the bottom arm and the top arm, and then I like to come forward and wrap up again in order to come into cow face. Just kind of re-thread the legs, come back. That silly block is in the wrong place. And you don't want to sit on that bottom foot. You want to try to have your feet at least a little bit separated. We're trying to relax those outer corners of the hips. Sometimes a little distraction is helpful. So I take that left arm and it's just slightly up and forward, so that as I bend into my elbow, I can soften that outer armpit forward. That way I can also soften the inner armpit. And then reaching back and holding onto the strap, perhaps I pull gently and then let the head and the heart rest back into my arms. Letting the belly rest back. Seeing if you can cultivate a sense of breath that has your presence and your softness in it. Maybe. 2 more exhales. The judge bell's gonna push me over. Thank you. I know, hi. Thank you for your assistance. And then you can let the strap go. She was on the other side. And then go ahead and let your legs unwind. We're gonna come down onto our bums, no blocks, feet planted on the floor. The other day, I was doing some stuff on the couch and I'm working on my laptop and she's like in my armpit. Are you jealous we have friends over? I know. Okay. So what we're gonna do now is sit the chest open. Okay. Without puppy help. Thank you. Okay. So elbows face back, palms face forward. You can stay here pushing down into the hands, or you can lift your hips up. Let the heart float upwards. One more inhale. And then gently releasing those hips down. We're going to come down onto our back. Take your arms up and open. The feet should be a little bit wider than the hips. Planted down on the floor. Maybe you hold on to opposing elbows if that feels nice. Let's flex the feet and roll the knees over towards the right side. Reaching that left knee away from you. One more breath out. And then taking the knees back up and rolling them over to the other side. I'm going to keep the feet flexed, reach that right knee away from you, stretching open through the front of that hip and thigh. And then coming back to the center. Kind of grab onto your block or a stack of books, or maybe you would prefer to do this on a pillow for something that's a little bit softer. I'm going to think of your sacrum as being like a big heavy book. It's very flat. That part of your body has a lot of weight and density to it. And if this block was a shelf, you want that big heavy book to be perfectly balanced in the middle of the shelf. You don't want it like kind of over here so it'll slide down, or over here so it'll slide forward. You want it balanced so that it's not going to be, shifting or falling at all. I'm going to take this block or stack of books just kind of on a low, flat setting. I'm going to lift my hips enough that I can get my sacrum onto it. Now you want to have most of the cushy part of your bum off of the block, and your waist is not on the block, because it's going to be a little bit too far or back setting. It should feel very sturdy here. If you feel like it's in the wrong place, you're probably right. Try moving that block an inch or so closer to your head, or an inch or so closer to your feet. And the answer might be only a half inch of movement, like just the slightest little shift. And just letting the weight of the hips fall down into the block. It's very gentle inversion, and the compression at the backs of the hips are kind of into your upper butt area. Is also kind of a nice way to give a very passive massage. We'll spend a little bit longer here if you feel like you need to shift anything. If you're not loving this, go ahead and bring your feet back or your hips back down onto the floor without the block. If you'd like to try something a little different, and I'll warn you, different orientation of the legs might mean that you have to come down and adjust this block again. But see about extending one or both legs up into the air. Just kind of leave them bent, and yeah, I need to shift just a tiny bit down. And oh yeah, there it is. Listen, you can even hold your thighs, just having your hands there for support. And if that was an option that you've decided you did not want to go along with, then you just put your feet back down. You should not feel like anything is weak or disconnected around the middle of your back, around your spine, around your waist area. If that's the case, we're going to want to adjust the block or put the feet back on the floor, or leave the feet on the floor. I'm going to start releasing the feet back down onto the mat. You're going to press down a little bit into your feet, take the hips up just enough that you can get that block out of your way, and then bring your knees up into your chest. Give yourself a hug. And drop your right foot down, slide your left knee over your right knee, and then come into a twist over towards the right side. You might stop at a smaller twist. You might feel like you've got a lot of room to roll those legs over. Jezebel. The boys aren't mad. You don't need to be mad. Thank you. Soften the belly. One more exhale. And then unwind, take it back to the center. And then cross your right thigh over the left thigh, roll it all the way over or a little bit over towards the left. I gotta wiggle my shoulders. There it is. That's the spot. Finding softness right into your very last exhale. And then unwinding as you return to center. Let the feet meet the mat. Let the knees meet each other. And if there's any other poses or movements, you know what to do. If you're feeling ready to find your own version of a comfortable rest, right in the earbuds. Thank you. We'll go ahead and settle in for a few minutes of softness before we wrap up together. Enjoy. Coming back to your breath. Getting a little bit more tuned in to the sensations that you're feeling. Maybe you're getting a little bit more energetic or desiring to make some small movements. And when you're ready, starting to roll yourself over to one side, drawing inwards for a moment of gratitude. And finding gratitude for coming to your mat today, for taking this time for yourself, for having the opportunity to share together in this way. And when you're ready, finding your own version of a comfortable seat, setting yourself up however it's supportive and worthwhile for you. And bringing your hands together at your heart. We'll seal our practice, releasing one Om together. Big breath in. Bowing down to the love and light that resides within each of our hearts, the light and the darkness within us all. Namaste. Thank you all.
So good. Well done.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks, Rob. Have a good one, guys. I hope your hips are all loosey-goosey, moving you into the week now. Okay.
FTR and belly dancing class tomorrow night.
Oh, yeah. That'll be good. Love it. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful week, guys.
Yes, thank you, you too.
Bye.